sake of the women's title here on Monday Night Raw.
Welcome to Last Match Standing, the podcast where we review, relive, and rank the 100 greatest wrestling matches of all time. As always, I'm Spencer.
I'm Paul.
I'm Landon.
And we are so excited for today's episode. You know who's really excited about this?
Me.
Landon.
Me. I'm so excited.
Are you excited?
You have no idea. Oh, my God. Okay, so Lita is the reason why I got into professional wrestling. So the fact that you, listener, who voted on that Twitter poll, 50% of the vote went to Lita versus Trish Stratus, and that's the match we're covering today. And I just want to thank you because I completely agree. This match absolutely deserves to be on the list. Maybe not necessarily for the 7 minutes that they spent in the ring.
And 9 seconds.
7 minutes and 9 seconds. So this will probably be the shortest match.
But let me tell you this, while you're on that point, the Twitter poll, we got really good participation this week.
Excellent
and I
participation.
Loved it.
Really appreciate that.
So thank you for that. So if you haven't already, follow us on Twitter at LastMatchCast. You can enter our Twitter polls there. You can also find us on Facebook at LastMatchCast. You can email us if we messed something up or if you have any match suggestions. That's at lastmatchstanding@gmail.com. And, of course, if you are listening to us on Apple Music or Apple Podcast or Spotify, Google Play Store, or wherever you're listening to your favorite podcast, totally review us. What are we doing for this 50 minutes? We're reviewing. It'd be super great if you could review us for like 5 seconds. It'd be awesome.
You're the best.
Also, Landon launched the Ranker this week.
Yeah, take a look at it.
Yeah.
It's ranker.com. We'll put the actual link to it in the show notes because I know some people are having trouble actually finding it. So check out Twitter. You'll definitely see a link to it there. Check out Facebook. We'll drop a link to the Ranker page there. And follow along with us. You know, we're talking about these matches, and we have our own opinions, and we have our own list. But we want to see if you guys agree with that. And the best way we could figure out how to do that is to let you guys vote on your own fan-controlled list of these matches.
Absolutely. And we're only on episode 4, which is crazy. It feels like we've been doing this a lot longer, but we're only on episode 4, and we are super grateful for any listening and participation that we get from you guys because this podcast is for you, and so we really love that you guys are in it with us. But that brings us to December 6th, 2004, our first match on the list from Monday Night Raw.
And definitely not the last.
It won't be the last, that's for sure. From Cricket Arena in Charlotte, North Carolina for the WWE Women's Championship. The champion Trish Stratus defending against Lita.
Guys, this is one of the matches that inspired people like Sasha Banks to become a wrestler. This is such an important match. And, you know, I talk a lot about Lita. I mean, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about Lita right now because, guys, Lita's story is one that has inspired me to become a wrestling fan. She had a boyfriend when she was younger who just happened to watch wrestling. I think it's WCW. And she would see the luchadors on TV and wanted to learn how to do that. She was really interested in it. So instead of just saying, oh, that would be cool, and going on with her life, she moved to Mexico. She just uprooted her whole life, went to Mexico, learned how to become a professional wrestler, gained the attention of ECW, wrestled there as Angelica for a while, I believe.
She tells some really wonderful stories about this in her Hall of Fame speech.
Her Hall of Fame speech is excellent.
It touches on this stuff, and it's so good.
You know, I read her book whenever I was just now kind of getting into wrestling, and I was like, whenever I get into something, I go all in. And I was super into Lita and her wrestling style because she was doing stuff that nobody else was doing. No other female wrestler was doing anything that she was doing. So whenever she finally got into WWE, they put her with Essa Rios. And he was having a light heavyweight championship run at the time. AAA fans may know him as Mr. Aguila. I don't know. I've never actually seen his AAA work.
He did wrestle under that title at WrestleMania 14.
Did
in a
he?
dark match, yes.
Oh, okay, that makes a lot of sense. Okay, because that's about a little bit after that is
Yeah, it's been
light heavyweight
98.
championship.
Yeah.
The height of the light heavyweight
You
championship.
knowing that, Paul, is so on brand for you.
I love Paul.
I can't.
He knows
begin to tell you
everything.
it's
I
fantastic.
do know a lot of wrestling trivia. That's one of them.
But okay, so all this to say, I truly believe Lita is the one responsible for the women's wrestling revolution.
The
one.
She's the one.
The one. She was it. And no one can y'all can fight me on that. You're not going to be able to convince me otherwise.
I agree with you.
Lita was fearless, okay? She's always been an inspiration to me. Her in-ring style, her lifestyle, it's all about taking risks. It's going out there, giving it your best shot no matter what, and do what you love. Whether that's punk rock music, wrestling, television, anything. She did it. And she was absolutely fearless. So huge thanks to Amy, because without her, I would not be sitting here recording this right now.
There is a reason why this match at 7 minutes and 9 seconds is one of the 100 greatest wrestling matches of all time. And a lot of it was summed up with what you just said. You know, this match isn't, so long lasting because it was technically the best contest. This match is so long lasting because it was a glass ceiling shattering moment.
Agreed.
And it's always going to look back. Oh, it's always going to be looked back on as that match that really made it possible for you to think about these women in the ring as something other than what they had always been.
Other than bra and panties.
I mean, to sum it up for you, on this same show, on this same night, December 6, 2004, where the main event is Trish versus Lita for the Women's Championship, Chris Jericho hosts a limbo contest.
Oh, yeah, I've got it written
On the
down right
same
here.
night, the Divas Rock and Roll Limbo A Go-Go.
Hosted by not just Jericho, but Fozzy.
And Fozzy.
Oh, seriously?
Yeah,
Yes.
they were there.
I
Yeah,
they
totally missed that.
performed-
I totally
Jericho.
missed that.
They perform live music.
Yeah, Chris
Excellent.
Jericho was the general manager for the night.
Oh,
on this Raw.
And to make
okay.
things even more cringy, the segment is interrupted by Muhammad Hassan and Davari.
Who had yet to make his in-ring debut. So to say that through all of that on a same night where you've got Maria and Melina and Christy Hemme and Candice Michelle playing limbo in the middle of the ring, and to say that in the same night you come out with the most groundbreaking match that arguably has ever happened in women's wrestling, it's mind-boggling. But that shows you how important this match is.
It
I
is.
was going to say, I have written here, well, for fuck's sake, this has not aged well.
Well, and we talk about the Muhammad Hassan segment.
Mhm.
Let's talk about Muhammad Hassan while we brought him up, because I absolutely loved that guy. Whatever happened to him? If you know what happened to Muhammad Hassan, please let me know.
Oh, I'll tell you exactly what happened to Muhammad Hassan. The
Should've seen this
Boston
coming.
bombing happened
Yeah.
the same night they ran a very terrorist-themed angle.
Okay, sure. I get that was his gimmick and that's what was going on and whatever. He has the skin color, whatever. The guy was a phenomenal wrestler.
Oh, he's a great
And
promo.
He, every single time he was in the ring, I was
It
invested.
was very good. You're absolutely right.
I'd like to point out, though, neither him nor Davari were from Iraq. Muhammad Hassan
no.
was Italian, and Davari is of Indian descent.
He was Italian?
Muhammad Hassan, yeah.
I had no
He's
idea.
from New York. He's an Italian guy from New York.
I mean, it's just a phenomenal wrestler.
This is also the night where, and listen, guys, if you want to know a trivia question, this is it right here. This is the same night making his in-ring debut, Simon Dean.
Oh, God, I was worried you were going to say Simon
the
Dean.
minute you said making his debut, I said, he's going to talk about Simon Dean versus the Hurricane.
So through all of this trash, to come out with Trish and Lita closing the show, beautiful.
Simon Dean. Talk about the exact opposite of a great professional wrestler.
Hey, don't hate on Nova.
I can't support Simon
I
Dean.
will hate on him. But let's get to how we get to December 6, 2004. Because I will tell you something, and I truly believe this. Trish Stratus versus Lita is one of the top 5 rivalries in wrestling history. You can argue where it ranks in the top 5. I don't care. But it absolutely is. It's one of my personal favorites, and it's one that builds on itself and builds on itself and builds on itself for a decade almost.
Absolutely. So, yeah, I mean, Lita and Trish have a long, storied history together. So the first time they ever teamed up, and this is like actually, team besties teamed up, was for the Invasion angle against WCW's Tori and Stacy.
Yeah, and that was 3 years prior to this.
3 years prior to this. It was a bra and panties match.
Surprise.
Of course it was.
But you know what was amazing about this match was after the match. Trish and Lita are I hope you guys know that this is amazing. Trish and Lita, after this match in 2001, they're like backing up, like how they do this, like the camera pans to them as they're like walking back to the locker room, and they're like playing to the crowd, playing to the camera, and so but they're walking backwards, so they're not looking where they're going. And the way the set was designed was there was this like V shape, so you got to go like around this big hole they have in the stage. Trish wasn't looking, and she almost dropped in that hole, and Lita like grabbed her at the last second. And she said, if it wasn't for Lita, I would have died. Like, she saved my life. It's hilarious if you haven't seen it.
Team Bestie born from that
Team
moment.
Bestie was born right there. And I mean, they have the Battle of the Sexes program earlier that year with Christian and Chris Jericho. Where
I'm sorry to interrupt. I'm really
no.
I want to say even before that, Lita was paired with TNA, right? With Test and Albert.
No, Trish was.
I'm sorry, Trish was.
She was
TNA.
the T in that.
Right. And then Lita was with the Hardy Boys.
Mm-hmm.
And so they ran into each other then. That's where you see Trish and Lita on a ladder for the first time together, right? So even before they become these singles competitors or team up, they had kind of run-ins with each other, which was really, really cool.
Their careers are so parallel.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
But you're right. Then we do get to Armageddon 2003.
No, go ahead. Armageddon 2003.
Yeah, no, that was what you were talking about.
The Battle of the Sexes was really interesting to me because that was like when I was really like kind of watching wrestling and really getting into it for the first time, and not just kind of watching it passively. And so this is one of those stories that was just so engrossing about it was most definitely a soap opera. Which is awesome. I mean, people call wrestling male soap operas, and it's totally true. So Christian and Chris Jericho had this bet going about whoever could sleep with, Christian was going to try and sleep with Lita, and Chris Jericho was going to try and sleep with Trish Stratus, and whoever was able to do that first, would win $1.
Pro wrestling, ladies and gentlemen. Pro wrestling for you.
Canadian,
that's right.
Okay, so it was a really interesting program, and Chris Jericho actually ends up falling for Trish, and then Trish ends up breaking his heart, and it's this whole deal.
One of the best WrestleMania moments. Like, I love at WrestleMania 20 with Christian and Trish get together, the slap, the whole thing. Like, it's great. It's a great cap to that story.
No, it absolutely is. The build to this match was, brutal. It's absolutely brutal. Late 2004, leading into Survivor Series, Lita is going through her storyline with being forced to marry Kane. She got pregnant. She lost Matt Hardy at this point, and so Kane gets her pregnant. But then she's doing all this work, and she's not able to do the in-ring work. Because I don't know if she had an injury at the time, but they were selling up the fact that she's pregnant, she can't work in the ring.
I think she had a legitimate neck injury, and that's why they did the pregnant angle.
I thought that was before this.
Well, this is one of the first matches she had back after she healed it, like her neck surgery was done.
Okay. I was under the impression the neck deal all happened way earlier. I could be totally wrong, but they had this whole program where. She lost the baby because Snitsky pushed Kane into her, and so
it wasn't his fault.
It wasn't his fault.
Then the amazing segment where he punts a baby into the 10th row.
Oh my God!
Yeah,
can we talk about that? Like, he comes out to Okay, we'll get there. We'll get there.
Snitsky watch begins.
So yeah, it's kind of an interesting angle that they have going. But Trish takes this opportunity to body shame and berate Lita, playing up the ultimate drunk with power champion angle, which is a great angle to play in pro wrestling. And Trish calls her the walking kiss of death, which is actually kind of a badass tagline.
Yeah, I'd keep it. That's pretty good.
So on the Raw before Survivor Series, Lita and Trish appear on Chris Jericho's highlight reel. And they do a decent promo work, hyping up the pay-per-view. And as Paul said, Gene Snitsky decided he wanted to make an appearance. And punts a baby. What, Spencer?
Yes.
What did you do when you saw Gene Snitsky punt a baby on Monday Night Raw?
Well, you were thinking it's November 2004, so I am 11 years old. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, Gene Snitsky is the most evil human being on the planet.
So this segment works for 11-year-old Spencer?
Apparently it did. Because I remember it vividly. I remember it vividly. You have to think, at that point we had been on such a roller coaster, right? So Matt Hardy faces Kane at SummerSlam in a Till Death Do Us Part match, which is a phenomenal title for a match, by the way.
Absolutely.
And so I was so entirely invested in Matt Hardy, Lita, and Kane that Gene Snitsky was scum of the earth.
No, absolutely. I mean, I don't think anyone liked Gene Snitsky, but I was actually impressed up to the actual punting of the baby. I was pretty impressed with his promo work for that because I kind of bought how clinically insane he was.
Well, now you can see him in his promo work for infomercials for pressure cookers and beard oil. He sells both of those things.
He's very successful too.
Yeah, the pressure cooker is my favorite. The infomercial always starts with, "I may have been under pressure in the ring, but not as much pressure as this pressure cooker." It's my favorite thing on the planet, and the fact is, it wasn't his fault.
Are you serious?
Absolutely,
I did not know.
Yeah,
this.
there you go, perfect. But yeah, so the baby, I can imagine, might have lost some people on it.
So.
I was going to say, I immediately threw both my arms up to say, it's good.
Oh my God, you're the worst. So Lita has the championship match against the champion Trish Stratus at Survivor Series November 2004. Lita brutalizes Trish Stratus. And like we've been saying, this is actually Lita's first match back in 7 months. And it's not a match. Lita pushes Trish out the ring. She trips Trish face first onto a chair, grabs said chair. The ref takes it from her. So she grabs another chair and drills Trish Stratus in the back. I mean, smashes that chair on Trish. I mean, they sold this rivalry like any man would do. Like, this
Right.
was the kind of stuff that you didn't see in women's wrestling.
That's exactly right. It was one of those things, their brutality of what Lita did to Trish, breaking her nose, right, at Survivor Series, you'd never seen before.
Let me take a step back. Let me correct myself. I said like any man would do. Like few men would do.
Yeah.
Like, this is not something that you saw every rivalry. This meant business.
Mm-hmm.
And so she's slamming Trish's face down into the concrete floor, and Trish breaks her nose. And I mean, it immediately starts bleeding. And I don't know if maybe they had like a blood pack hidden behind the counter, or if this was kayfabe or not. But guess what? I bought it.
Right. And I've read that it's really like no one people know, but there are plenty of people that think that she actually broke her nose.
Well, and they play the angle up for several weeks. Trish comes out the next night wearing this
Face
mask.
mask.
And I mean, it's such a great, I'm so holier than thou. I can't believe you hurt my beauty kind of deal. I loved it. So the next week, Lita has her first match back on Raw in 7 months, and it's a decent match against Molly Holly. And I noticed in this match, she uses a rear naked choke. That's something that's very interesting to me, and it's going to play a very important role in the match that we're actually going to be discussing here in a minute, and we'll get to that. The following week, it's a women's championship match. Again, Trish Stratus versus Lita versus Molly Holly.
Yep, triple threat. Mm-hmm.
And the main event of Raw, I don't know, this wasn't the main event, but the main event of Raw that night was a steel cage World Heavyweight Championship match, Chris Benoit versus Triple H.
I'm so glad you said that, because there's, in this particular time period and the stretch of these couple of months, there is all sorts of really fascinatingly interesting things happening with the world title.
This is insane booking.
Mm-hmm.
And so what was going on with the world title at this point to where they felt like they had to make these crazy, insane matches?
Well, yeah, go ahead, Paul.
Well, I'll tell you, SmackDown was telling better stories than they were. That's what was going on. And they figured, well, Triple H has been the champion for 2 years. Maybe we should do something different.
I think you're exactly right. And this was them doing something different. It was, because I think at this point, Chris Benoit had dropped the title to Orton, and then Orton dropped it back to Triple H. Spoilers.
Well, on this night,
2004. Spoilers.
Well, the opening segment of this night is Triple H having the title stripped. Vince walks out, like, you're no longer the champion.
That's because the week before they had a triple threat match for the world title, where Chris Benoit is pinned at the same time that he makes Edge submit.
Yes.
And so they don't know what to do with the title, so Vince just vacates it.
Yeah, but this is just insane booking. And so
right.
and on this night, it was all because of the Survivor Series stipulation that put Benoit and Jericho's team in charge of Raw for 4 weeks after Survivor Series.
That's
right. So Benoit was the general manager. And so Lita earlier in the night went to Benoit and was just like, if you're the general manager, I want a title match, and I want Molly Holly in the match too. And that's how we got the triple threat match. And then Benoit just makes himself the number one contender in the steel cage match. But the point is, we got 2 high-profile championship matches on Raw. I mean, the booking is just insane. Why don't we see shit like that anymore? We don't have crazy matches on Raw. It's very rare that we do. And this one is so, it's like, and sure, if we had matches like that every week, they wouldn't mean as much, but at least this time it was justified as part of the story. We knew coming out of Survivor Series, we would have some really crazy shit. And, I'm getting off track about, complaining about the current product, but come on.
Hey, we got the 24/7 division.
That's pretty good. That's whatever. We can argue that all night. But anyway, in this match, Lita continues to work on Trish's face, but Trish actually manages to escape with the belt after Lita puts the rear naked choke on her.
Mm-hmm.
So that she's continuing to choose to use that move. The next week, they have a tag team match, Lita and Victoria, Trish and Molly. Lita ends up getting the pin on Trish, setting up the championship match on December 4th. A lot of people would call this match the first ever women's championship main event of Raw. A lot of people would be wrong. Actually, 4 years prior to this, the first ever women's championship match to main event Raw was Lita versus Stephanie McMahon.
Mm-hmm. I'm so glad you said that, because how does that match end, Landon? Do you remember?
Lita versus Stephanie McMahon?
Yeah. Do you remember how that match ended? The Rock was a special guest referee.
The Rock was in there. The Hardys came out. Triple H came out.
You know who cost Lita the title in that match? Trish Stratus.
Are you serious?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm.
How fucking awesome is that? I mean, everything comes full circle.
So we're talking about how these 2 women, cross paths repeatedly. That was, this is a rivalry that was 4 years in the making at this point, right? Because that was the time when Trish was, the whole thing with Vince and all that fun stuff. So,
that was fun.
Well, arguably.
Well, not for Trish, it wasn't.
No.
Ooh, not for Linda, it wasn't.
Ooh. It's so bad. But yeah, Trish cost Lita. So you could say that 4 years later, these are still repercussions from that happening, which is, when have we seen something get a 4-year payoff? When's the last time that happened?
That's pretty rare in wrestling.
It's so
And
rare.
if it does happen, it's usually by accident.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, wait a minute. These guys feuded exactly 4 years ago. Well, put them in the main event.
Well, and you could call this by accident too. But
well, right, yeah.
the fact that their careers were so parallel leading
so
up to
intertwined.
this
Absolutely.
is just amazing. And so before this match, we get the wonderful payoff on the kiss of death remarks. And we're going to play that segment for you right now.
Look who it is, the walking kiss of death. Tell me, whose career do you plan on ending tonight?
Yours.
Wow. Oh, my gosh. Now I really can't wait to see this match. You don't have to wait long because it's next.
It's so good. It's one of my favorite things. I just because I had forgotten about this particular segment.
Well, I
so
did too.
when I was watching this Raw going into this match, there are two things that I love. One of them is that they play different flashbacks throughout the night of different things that have happened in this rivalry, and so it makes you care. It makes it feel like it's important, which is what it needs to be, right? But when you have this segment with Lita and Trish right before they go out there, and Trish, she's the cocky, perfect heel almost, and Lita the crowd is insane for her, and that payoff was a beautiful line. It was a beautiful moment, and to me, it is this rivalry in one scene. It was phenomenal.
No, absolutely. I absolutely loved the confident champion versus struggling challenger storytelling throughout this whole match.
Mm-hmm. But then you knew from this scene that we just got before they walked out that Lita's confident, and she had all the reason to be.
Absolutely.
So that brings us to the actual match. We're there. It's December 6, 2004, just to kind of set the scene for you. On commentary, JR and King, of course. Referee Chad Patton. How about that?
Chad Patton.
Yeah.
He's called a few good ones.
He has. He didn't have the horrible beard that he does now.
He doesn't have his mullet anymore either.
That's also true. But let's take this moment as we're setting this match up. The women are about to come down in the ring. Let's just take a moment to appreciate the theme songs.
Oh, man. Trish Stratus and Lita have two of my absolute
All-time
favorite theme songs of any wrestler. Every single time they come out, you're just like, it's time to rock and roll. This time I'm in control. I mean, it's just, it gets you moving. And I mean, you talk about Lita.
I mean, iconic. I always like the eyes. I'm imagining like the video board with the eyes that are changing colors throughout the course of the entrance.
How did they pull off a theme song that starts with "Go fuck your rules, man" 4 times in a row, and they gave it to a woman? And I mean, they pulled this off in 2004.
Well, the theme song to Raw also had the F word in it too.
It sure did. But I
One
mean,
of my favorite Raw themes.
Clever
by the way,
editing. Just
it's the best
fixes
Raw
it.
theme there
It's
ever
so good.
was.
It's
Absolutely.
so good. But you're right. It's kind of interesting, that they're able to pull that off. But man, I'm so glad they did.
I prefer the 95 intro, but to each their own.
The 95 intro? Oh, it's a Raw? Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it's great.
Get off my lawn.
So, yeah, no, and God, Dustin, can we get these entrance themes in here? I want to jam out for a second.
Dustin, thank you in advance for any and all work that you've
Yeah,
done.
appreciate
for us.
that.
Yeah. So we get in the ring, and JR, surprise, surprise, says something that I love almost right off the bat. He almost immediately says, "It's all about the title, but I think it's about a whole lot more."
And he was so right.
He was.
I have to point out, JR puts so much more effort in calling this match than does any other segment tonight. He clearly was like, wanted this to happen, And you can tell he's proud of both of them before the match starts and when it ends.
This will not be the first or last time we say this, but JR has made so many matches the greatest of all time.
Yeah, the passion in his voice from the entrances, pre-bell, during the match, post-bell. Fever pitch the entire time. He is putting so much into this. His voice is cracking at the end of this match.
If JR's invested, you're invested.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely right. And he said another thing right before the bell actually rings. He says, for these women, it's just as important as the vacated world title. And how do you not get pumped up for that? You know, like he is telling you the point that this women's championship match, which previously has been defended in mud wrestling contest or whatever else in the hell it's been defended in, that this matters. And it is important. And these women are going to kill each other for it.
Particularly important at a time when the men's world title is vacant. There is no champion. So guess what? This is the top title on this show right now.
Mm-hmm.
And we're about to see two of the absolute greatest competitors in the organization fight for it. And if you needed anybody to sell that for you, I didn't at the time. I was super invested. But if you needed anybody to sell it for you, JR did right there.
Done. Exactly. Totally done. It should be pointed out that we were in, as Lillian Garcia says, North Carolina's own Lita when she makes her entrance. So a little hometown favoritism, which is always kind of fun.
Oh, it's so much fun.
Yeah, the crowd. I mean, Lita could have done anything in the world. They were eating out of the palm of her hand. They loved her so much.
And, man, they got a treat from Lita tonight.
Boy, did they.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned the word fight because that's what they do. They fight for this belt. Mm-hmm. They don't pull each other's hair. They don't roll when they do roll on the ground, but not for the reason that you're thinking. But they fight for this belt. They make you, as a fan, go, this belt is important. It's not a joke. It is not a trinket. It is a championship. And this is how you earn a championship. You fight for it.
Absolutely. They definitely sell the big fight feel with this match, and it's definitely a championship match. And you can feel it from the moment that Trish walks in the ring with the belt. She's got the mask too, which is awesome.
It is.
But did you catch what Trish says to the audience? She doesn't have a microphone, so you really got to pay attention. But whenever she looks at the camera and she's going out to the crowd, she holds up the belt, and Trish says, "This is for you people." Not. I mean, she's just, we talked about in our last episode, right? We talked about in our last episode about how Eddie Guerrero masterfully would play to the crowd and was just constantly getting heat. Trish was an absolute perfectionist about getting heat from the crowd.
Trish legitimately is one of my all-time favorite heels. She was so good, and that's a prime example. I mean, it's a prime example of it. But you're right. Big fight feel the second she walks into the ring. And it's a big fight the second the bell actually rings. Because the first thing that happens is Lita and Trish get tackled. They tackle themselves to the outside. They fall through the ropes and immediately fall to the floor.
Did anybody catch the beautiful, circumstantial, circular storytelling? In this match, Lita's nose starts bleeding. And you can see the blood on Trish Stratus' hands for the majority of the match. And I mean, talk about it all coming, full circle for this huge moment.
Perfect.
Like this is the story, and it's totally circumstantial. Like I don't think they planned for Lita's nose to start bleeding.
I highly doubt that.
I'm so glad it did.
Yeah, it's just another one of those incredible details that elevates this match on an even higher level than it was before that.
Lita took quite a beating in this one, though.
Oh,
Yeah.
gee, don't get me started on that. Like, as soon as they come back to the ring,
It's my job to get you started.
Lita
on that.
immediately backdrops Lita over the top rope and then does what I put as this is the scariest. Well, it's not a tope. This is a suicide dive. She damn near killed herself doing this suicide dive. And they repeatedly showed it 5 times. Every time, please stop showing me this moment. It scared me so much that I stopped watching the match for 5 minutes because, this woman just got back from neck surgery and she folds herself in half backwards 2 minutes into the match. It scared me so much. But holy shit, like a professional, she kept going. She can tell she's hurt, but it does not affect the match.
Something that the WWE, quite frankly, has always done very well is they do a really good job of making you remember moments. And this is the moment you take away from this match.
Absolutely.
That's played 15 years later. When you think about Lita, Trish, Monday Night Raw, you think, oh my gosh, Lita almost died.
You think about the Scorpion spot.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's painful to watch. It's heartbreaking as a Lita fan going 7 months or 8 months at this point without having her in the ring and seeing something like that and thinking the worst.
I can almost picture you just not breathing.
I didn't breathe. I'm sure they went to commercial break immediately after that, right?
No commercial.
There's no commercial for this, right?
No.
Okay.
No, the match.
If it happened today, they would have gone straight to commercial, and I would have been a nervous wreck the whole time.
Well, Chad
Checking Twitter.
Patton immediately checks on her. She squeezes the hand, and they keep going.
And then, this moment is iconic, and it's great. But I love the follow-up to it just as much. Lita gets back into the ring. Trish takes off her face mask. Her nose is miraculously healed, and she hits Lita in the face with the mask.
Love it.
Immediately, like right in the face with it, uses it as a weapon. And then JR goes, there's nothing wrong with her nose.
King said, surgeon did a great job.
Followed by, would you stop?
It's excellent back and forth commentary.
It is. But to go from Lita with that incredible suicide dive moment to then Trish takes control, and she does it like a heel would. She takes her face mask off, hits Lita with it, and then it's all Lita for a good bit of the match after that.
I'd like to point out that Trish breaks out the rear naked choke first on the top rope.
That's true. That's very true.
It is immediately reversed by a snapmare, and then Lita applies it better.
Well, we've seen this rear naked choke several times leading up to this match. And so whenever you see her apply it here, you've seen her win several matches leading up to it. So everyone's thinking, oh, man, is this it? Is this it? Is she going to do it? And that's such a great spot, whenever you have the crowd in the palm of your hand and it's your hometown and this is a huge, big fight feel. But you know what a great match does? They never give it up to you in the first go-around.
Nope.
Oh, no.
They don't show you everything they have immediately, right?
Exactly my point.
Mm-hmm.
So they do such a huge build-up showing you how devastating Lita can be with this move. And at the end of the night, what does Lita win with?
Twist of fate, moonsault.
The Lita Salt.
I was waiting for you to call it the Lita Salt.
The picture-perfect Lita Salt.
Beautiful.
And the crowd pops huge because this was the first Lita Salt that she's done in 7 months.
I'd like to point out after she does a very devastating power bomb.
Oh, man, that power bomb.
The power bomb's great.
I'd like to point out there's been
That's
a power
after the
bomb.
superplex.
A power bomb in every match we reviewed. There's been at least one power bomb.
But I was talking to you earlier about the importance of the rear naked choke. And this is it.
Mm-hmm.
This is why. Because for several weeks, she has deprived her loving fans of their favorite move. And here it is. And it's what wins her the championship. And it would not have been the same if she hadn't have used the rear naked choke in the previous matches.
Well, I agree. She made it mean something. And it means double now because that's how she wins the title.
Fantastic storytelling.
And then JR gives us my favorite line of the night. He just goes, by God, Lita did it. I can't believe the heart and the determination. He trips himself up because he says these two women have both given us. Because he's so excited. I don't think he knew how the match was going to end.
It was so fun. Like the moment that Lita hits that perfect Lita Salt off the top, she hits Trish. It's over 1, 2, 3. Because the end of that, like from the pin to the end of Raw going off the air, is really like 30 seconds. Like it's not long at all.
Long.
But it's long enough for JR to tell you how incredible that was.
Yeah, JR gets his shit in. The crowd loses their minds, and it said, "That's it, ladies and gentlemen, from Charlotte." And it just cuts because they were out of time.
Yep.
And it's like that's so frantic. So I know we normally talk about the aftermath. Well, we don't really get it because we got 30 seconds.
Well, King says, the one thing really he says after this, in this moment, in these 30 seconds, he says, "I've never seen anything like this."
Coming from King, who normally is going puppies.
Who
He shuts up and calls the match.
It's definitely a match that forced people to respect women's wrestling.
Oh, I agree.
And, after this, they have another match, a follow-up match at New Year's Revolution. And I was thinking, I didn't really remember it too well. And so I went back and watched it, and I kind of remember why. It was very disappointing. Lita has, I don't know if she was told to feign a knee injury or what the deal was, but, she does the repeat spot where she does the tope suicida and is selling this knee injury. And so from that point on, Trish just targets the knee and then gets a chick kick and pins her and gets the belt back, which I don't really understand. But
I like to point out she does that move, but they do not call it the chick kick, thankfully. They call it its proper name, the savate kick.
This is a savate kick.
Yes.
Oh, good.
Beautiful, too, because she hits her right with the side of her calf muscle. That's where you're supposed to do it.
Hey, Trish knew how to do it.
Oh, yeah.
It's one of my favorite moves.
That's great.
Trish does it. I will call it a chick kick, just so you know. But I think it's actually, you brought up New Year's Revolution, and I'm glad you did, because it speaks to the importance of this Monday Night Raw main event and how out of character it was for the WWE at the time. Because even just a couple weeks later, they're back to the same short, meaningless match.
Well, early in the night, rock and roll, limbo, bikini go-go. That kind of sums up how women were treated at the time. And I wrote in my notes, to be fair, most of the women in that segment were not trained to wrestle. They were trained to be eye candy.
Right.
And that's just the way it was at the time. It's years before it's taken seriously again.
This is a match that does change people's perceptions of women's wrestling. And it's not just because they were in the main event of Raw. It's because Lita hits a superplex off the top rope, giving us that great line that you heard in the open from JR. It's because Lita hits the power bomb. It's because when Lita goes for her DDT, Trish hangs up on the rope, and Lita looks like she's going to snap her neck again when she hits the mat so hard. It's because it's physical, it's intense, and it was important.
What a great match. And thanks to everybody who voted on this match to go over. Whenever we put the four options, I think it was Bayley and Sasha. We had Becky, Charlotte, and Sasha on there in this match, and I'm so glad that this one went through.
Well, they had this match from 2004. The next closest match was a decade later. That's how long before, particularly WWE, was considering women's matches to be important again. 10 years.
Although I will say, Unforgiven 2006, Lita and Trish. Trish's quote-unquote retirement match, I also really love. On a great pay-per-view. But
I need to watch that.
See you at a later episode.
It's really great. But how fitting is it, guys, that the first women's match, I'm so glad it worked out this way, the first women's match that we covered on this show was Trish Lita, main event of Raw.
Extremely fitting. And I guarantee you it's not going to be the last women's match we cover in the show.
Oh, no.
Bayley versus Sasha Banks from NXT TakeOver Brooklyn is one of my favorite matches of all time, and it'll definitely make this list.
I just want to say, my contribution to the list we did was Sasha Banks versus Charlotte at NXT TakeOver Revolution in 2014. That's my favorite women's match of all time. I know we'll get to talk about it at some point, but I, like both of you, I'm actually very happy this one won because I forgot how important this match was. I forgot that this is a good wrestling match. It's a very important moment, but they went out there and they gave us 7 minutes of very hard-hitting action.
They took advantage of every second.
Exactly. They did everything that they're told not to do in a women's match. I feel like this match was put together. What are we not allowed to do? Checklist. We're going to do everything we're not allowed to do. Brawl the outside, top rope moves, punching each other, doing actually wrestling moves. women were not allowed to do this at the time, and they did everything they're not allowed to do.
And I'm glad you brought that up, that they weren't allowed to do it.
No.
Melina and Michelle McCool were talking about a match that they had. Was it to like 2009 around about
sounds
right.
whenever
That
they
sounds about
were
right. The Dark Ages.
and so Melina left WWE not too long after that because she was one of those women's wrestlers who had so much talent and so much ability and wanted to do so much more than they were giving her.
They let her do an entrance and scream.
Pretty much. But so Melina and Michelle McCool went out there and they had a phenomenal match one night within the time limit that they were given. And they were scolded when they got backstage because, quote, "You can't look better than the guys."
Well, then the guys need to get better.
So they left.
And I mean, that leads us obviously to the women's revolution, so to speak, sort of down the line, where they don't take that, where they should be seen as just as good as the guys on the roster, and a lot of times outperform the guys on the roster, right? And so and this is one of my favorite hypotheticals is what happens if Trish and Lita are in 2019. What happens if Michelle McCool and Melina, what if they're 2019? How does that look? What kind of classics did we miss out on? It's maddening. It really is.
It's infuriating.
It is.
Absolutely.
Well, I agree.
So, favorite moments from this match. We should touch that. Favorite moments from this match.
As much as it hurts me to watch it, the suicide dive, because how did she not kill herself doing that? Like, just, it's a very tasteless quote, but I'm going to quote Joey Styles here. A match that happened a year later, Mike Awesome does a very similar looking suicide dive, and he says, "Suicide dive," and he nearly succeeded in taking his own life.
Ooh.
Whenever I saw this, that's what ran through my head.
Yeah.
Tasteless line,
That's awesome.
but that's what I was thinking. So when she gets up and keeps fighting, it makes that moment bigger. Let's just move. Somebody else talk. Let's move on.
So no, Paul, I think you're absolutely right. That moment is huge, and there's another moment that's actually very subtle, that speaks really loud, and I don't think we covered it. There's a moment in the match where Trish is on the outside and Lita is on the inside, and Trish is on the apron, and she's trying to bring her in with a DDT. And Lita, by the way, has my absolute all-time favorite DDT.
It's awesome.
It's beautiful.
It's one of my favorites.
It's sick.
Absolutely.
Or maybe Trish is just really close to the ropes, but at some point, Lita tries to go down with the DDT, and Trish hangs onto the rope. And Lita hits the mat hard. And that moment shows you, it tells you everything you need to know about the rest of the match. From start to finish, they put their all into every 7 minutes and 9 seconds of this match.
First of all, that's rude. You took my favorite moment. That's my favorite moment because right after that, when Lita misses with the DDT, Trish gets her legs up on the ropes and pins her, like the dirty pin off the ropes.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Both feet on the middle rope.
And you think, no way, Trish is going to steal this match this way. Like,
there's
don't do it.
There's some excellent near falls. Like, they have a good, 30 seconds. It's like, oh, God, here we go.
The rear naked choke.
Well, after the rear naked choke, Trish immediately throws her into the turnbuckle, backs her into it immediately. And then they just kind of start brawling. And I'm like, I've never seen two, women wrestlers in WWE brawl before. What is this? And it's just, there's a lot going on. It's a short match, but I think that has less to do with them being handcuffed and more to do with the fact that, the show was already going long. I felt like if they had 5 more minutes, I think it would be that much better, but I really think the time limit was just like, hey, we're out of time, because as soon as the pinfall happens,
That's it.
All right, buddy, good night from Charlotte.
Yeah.
Landon, last word. I feel like if anybody deserves the last say on this match, it's you.
I think we said a lot about the match, and if anyone else has anything else to add, did we miss something, let us know at Last Matchcast on Twitter and lastmatchstanding@gmail.com. But the last thing I want to say is thank you to Trish and Amy, because if it wasn't for this match, we would not have wrestling as we know it right now. So I just want to say thanks.
That does it for today. I can't wait to see what we cover next. It's going to be really, really fun. I imagine we'll do a Twitter poll for that, so be looking for that. Again, like Landon said, communicate with us however in the world you want to, whether it's on Twitter at Last Match Cast or on Facebook at the same.
Crumple up a piece of paper and throw it our way.
Yeah, whatever.
Whatever works for you.
That's my preferred method of communication.
Whatever it is, we want to hear from you. We want to hear what you like about the show. We want to hear what you think you would like better on the show. We're all ears all the time. We're ready to whatever makes this a better experience for you. So until next time.
Not so fast, sir. We got to rank this match.
That was the whole point of this thing.
How could you forget?
What's the whole point of this thing?
What's this
Let's rank
podcast
it.
called, Spencer?
I don't know.
Lats match.
Lats match standing. Wow. We have to rank it. Not so fast.
This is going to be probably the most difficult one to rank. For me, I realized that I've said every match should be number one, and I thought about that coming into this. But at the same time, I also feel like this is not number one, but this is a strong number two and or number three contender. I would put this side by side with either of those two matches and say it is just as good, if not better. So I'm going to say, for me, this is going to be number two.
Okay. So I obviously put lots of thought into ranking this match. So this is a match where you have to think, because of how groundbreaking it is. You know, at this point, Trish was a 5-time women's champion going into this match. Lita wins her second championship in this match. With it being the main event of Monday Night Raw, is this, like, with it being so groundbreaking, does that make it better than some matches that come later in terms of actual wrestling? So it's really, really difficult for me to rank for that reason, because I'm kind of looking down the line and I'm kind of comparing Sasha and Bayley, and I don't know how I feel about that yet. So I'm going to say, based off of just the three we have, Hart, Austin 1, Eddie Ray 2, Cactus Jack and Triple H 3, I'm going to say that this is also number 2, because I think of these three matches, I think that's where it fits, kind of right under Hart Austin.
I think that's a very fair assessment. I obviously am a big fan of this match, and there are just so many different factors that we have to weigh whenever we're talking about what the greatest matches of all time are. And we've gone into the previous three in great detail, and when I'm trying to think of the reasons why we placed those past three matches where they were, we're talking about longevity. What does this match mean to the overall wrestling world? And this match means so much for the world of wrestling, particularly women's wrestling. Do I feel like the Cactus Jack Triple H match really meant that much? There are other hardcore matches out there. Eddie Ray was a phenomenal match. But did it change the landscape of wrestling at the time?
No.
Not really. This match did. But for me, and this is, I'm being my own worst enemy here, because I was the one that said no match would ever surpass Hart Austin. I think that holds true.
You had me on the edge of my seat.
Me too. I'm like,
I was
wait
like,
a minute.
I was very concerned with what was
I think I
happen.
agree with you. This match has to go number 2.
Awesome. I feel so good about this number 2 ranking that we put a lot of thought into. I think you're right. I think because of what it does for women's wrestling, it has to be one of the best of all time. And it has the impact that some of these matches that we've covered don't have.
Sure. And I mean, I think that might be a controversial decision. I definitely think that there's going to be some people that say Eddie Ray was such a better match. You guys are insane.
That's fine.
And I think that's fine, and I could totally see that argument. But if we're talking about the legacy that these matches have left on the world of wrestling, I think it's number 2 for now.
I agree. And if the people who disagree with us, feel free to reach out to us on Twitter. Tell us why we're wrong or tell us why we're right.
That's
We'd
why we
love to
made
hear
it
from you.
That's why we made a ranker.
That's right.
Go over there and rank it yourself. I mean, that's what it's for. Man, this was so fun. I just love this a lot. I hope you guys enjoyed it as well. Paul, you have something?
Oh, no.
Look like you did. I didn't want to cut you off. Super fun. Dustin, again, thank you for making us sound better than we ever will. So I appreciate that. I can't wait to see what we cover next. I'll try to go into the ending now that I was going to do before we ranked it, which was super, super stupid. But we'll be back next week with something equally as fun. Can't wait to see what it is. We'll relive, review, and rank it then. But until then, I'm Spencer.
I'm Paul.
I'm Landon.
And this is
Last Match Standing.